In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state.
Well, would you look at that? After years of being told by Democrats that illegal immigrants would never do anything that's illegal, like voting in our elections, a Democrat just told us that thousands of illegal immigrants are voting in her state. That was New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill earlier this week, confirming another right-wing conspiracy theory and proving that illegal immigrants are in fact voting in our elections. At least 6,600 illegal aliens were registered to vote in New Jersey, with at least 400 actually having the nerve and the arrogance to go out and cast a ballot. Think about that. And isn't it odd that New Jersey is one of 30 blue states that have refused to hand over voter roll information to the Justice Department? Red states have, blue states won't do it. And then you think about why Democrats in Washington are against voter ID, and it all starts to make sense. They want illegal immigrants voting in our elections on the...
You have to at this point begin at least thinking that there are certain Republicans that want the other people voting in elections as well. It doesn't make any sense that people on the right would be fighting this, Lisa Murkowski. There's a lot of suspect stuff happening. This is an overwhelming issue. It's an 80, like I said, 80-20, 85-15. Everybody wants this to happen. But the people who need to vote to make it happen are fighting. We're never going to get any Democrats. Maybe John Fetterman, maybe. But other than that, it's going to be 99.9% Democrats will say no. That should be completely indicative of where they are, why people can't see that. They can't win an election without having fake voters and dead people and illegal people voting for them. We all know it. And what makes it worse is that every single one of us, to do so many things in our own lives, got to show ID. You have to show ID in order to get on a plane, as you know. You got to show ID oftentimes to buy liquor. You have to show ID to get a library card. You have to show ID to do so many different things, the most menial of things. You have to show ID to open a gym membership. This is elementary, and they're trying to make it out like it's something huge, some sort of impediment, but it's not. It's all BS. And now 6,600, they say, were caught in New Jersey. She had to get out in front of it. You notice how she blamed it on a previous governor. Wasn't me. But then the software company came out and said it wasn't us. You guys knew it. You put those things in there. Nobody in the media is covering that, but the software company said it wasn't us. You did it. But that being said, no harm, no foul. We can fix this. All we need to do is verify the voter roll. Why is it that the blue states specifically do not want anybody verifying the voter rolls? It's obvious. There can be no other reason. They can pontificate on every television show out there, but real life, everybody knows you got to show an ID for everything. Everything.
Fringes in key districts, just enough to make a difference. And our next guest has given the state of New Jersey 5 days to hand over their voter data and the names of all of the illegal immigrants who cast ballots in elections, which, by the way, is a federal crime. You can go to jail for that. Harmeet Dillon is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Justice Department. Harmeet, it's so nice to have you back. 2 questions. How bad do you think this problem is in New Jersey? Do you think it's bigger? And do you think other blue states are doing the same thing?
Well, thank you for having me. And so let's talk about what she said happened. So they aren't necessarily illegal immigrants, but they're immigrants who are not entitled to vote.
They could be green card holders, but still that's against the law.
They could be.
Yep.
All illegal. For the voting part is definitely illegal. Number two, these are people who self-identified when they were getting their driver's licenses as non-citizens. So these are the people who raised their hands and said, don't register me to vote. So that's a subset of people who are registered to vote illegally in New Jersey, because there are plenty of people who go and they say I'm a citizen and they register to vote and they're not entitled to. So our Homeland Security has actually informed the state of New Jersey that there are potentially 35,000 people on the voter rolls who are not United States citizens who could be casting ballots, and New Jersey has been mum on that. That's why I'm suing New Jersey. But the other thing I want to point out to you is this is not just a blue state problem. Some of the 30 states who are resisting giving us their voter rolls include West Virginia, they include Utah, they include Republican states, because this is a bipartisan problem that, frankly, around the country, secretaries of state have not kept their voter rolls up to date. I mean, look at the governor here. She's pointing the finger at some software vendor. It's not the job of the software vendor to verify citizenship. It's the job of the Secretary of State. In this case, that job is held by the Lieutenant Governor of New Jersey, and the vendor just transmits the data. So blaming them is a cop-out.
Okay.
We will be investigating exactly what happened there, up
just
and down,
quickly,
and whose fault it is.
Okay, so you're saying 35,000 maybe in New Jersey alone? Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
It went from 6 to 35, but you're not going to know because you're not getting the data. Now, what I want you to, not right now, but begin looking at is the margin of victory in some of these races. Remember, President Trump lost Georgia, they say, by a very, very, very small percentage of the overall delegate, of the electorate. So when the Democrats go on CNN and go, it's just a little bit of fraud. Well, sometimes a little bit can make the big difference between somebody winning or somebody losing. Just that little bit, they keep saying. Before it was, no, it never happens. Now, it happens, but not enough to make a difference. Well, how do you know? This is one of those things you could turn right back on them. If we're not able to check the voter rolls, how do you know it's only a little bit? How do you know how many dead people voted? I don't know many of us who know dead people, haven't gone to lunch with any dead people, haven't seen anybody in line dead, but somehow they're voting. So when the argument has now turned to it never happens to it's insignificant, that's a smokescreen because you're not giving anyone the data.
That's
100%.
unbelievable.
And there are hundreds of
35,000
that, yes, but let me tell you, there are hundreds of thousands that we've identified just in a handful of states where we've been able to get the voter data from commercial sources, so it isn't 100% accurate. But I can tell you it's scary, and these states are gaslighting their citizens. They go out there, they criticize the president's speech last week on Thursday, where he pointed out what's going on in our country, and this governor herself came out after the president's speech and said he was making it up, he's lying, and she probably knew at that time that this very problem was happening in her own state.
By the way.
All right, so she's lying. They're all lying. Every single one of them are lying, and the only way you're going to exonerate yourself is to show the goods, but they won't show it, which perpetuates the insanity that these people are spewing. But they're getting away with it. And the reason they're getting away with it, and why I was talking earlier about the full rebuke, is they don't care. They don't care whether you forged the votes. They don't care whether it's dead people. They don't care if you stuff mail-in ballots. They don't care if you kill President Trump. Bottom line is, we need to win by any means necessary. They don't care. The bulk of their party has turned sour, has turned funky. And that's where the real problem in my mind exists, because most of us think, even if you're a Democrat, you might be a decent person. And these decent people have been absorbed or changed or radicalized. I don't know any anymore. I used to tell you that, Robin's family up in the mountains, there were a few people there who were Democrats, not lib crazy, but they were Democrats. I wonder how they think right now. Or would they dare go against the machine? What kind of brainwashing has been put forth where you've voted a certain way for so long, and at this point, what do you mean? Yeah, your people, it's scummy. You've been invaded. And I know these people because they own homes, they own businesses, they've done well in life. There's no way they want to be socialists. There's not a chance that any of them want socialism. But then you get the kind of liberals like, well, not for me, but if it helps the poor peoples. No, you don't get to pick and choose where the socialism goes. That's the other misconception. Well, I'm doing okay, but maybe those people need some socialism. Maybe they need some universal basic income, the UBI and the food stamps. No, there's no little bit pregnant here. And I don't think enough of these people have educated themselves into the mindset of the socialist. It is like a locust. It's going to eat everything in its sight, and it's going to be completely indifferent to whether you are a good Democrat or a nut job.
So the 2000 election, Bush versus Gore, was decided by 537 votes. So what's your message to anyone who says that 400 votes in the state of New Jersey isn't enough to swing an election? By the way, JFK beat Nixon in 1960 by 112,000 votes. So 35,000 votes can swing an election. What's your message to people who say this doesn't matter?
I don't know. So she said
that was 35,000 in one state. There's 50 of them. It's a lot. It's huge. That's why it's such a big issue.
This didn't matter because they keep moving the goalposts, Rob. First, this isn't happening. Well, it's happening, but it isn't significant. Now, it's happening, but it didn't sway the outcome of the election. But how does she know that? Because there were numerous municipal elections in New Jersey that were decided by a handful of votes. And as you just said, this happens all the time. And as I just said, there are likely tens of thousands of more people on the voter rolls in this state and others who do not belong and who have been casting ballots. So in the past, the Department of Justice and other administrations hasn't gone hard on the voters who vote illegally, but this Department of Justice is. We've already prosecuted some people, and there are many more in the pipeline. And this is a very serious matter. But one more point is, I've informed all election officials throughout the United States that it is a federal crime for election officials to knowingly allow non-citizens to vote.
Oh,
that is huge. I mean, Harmeet has and by the way, her name is Harmeet Dillon. She has got such a tough job. She's got to get in there with the snakes and the vipers and weed all this stuff out. Can you imagine what this administration is doing? Between everything Scott Bessent is doing and finding out where the money's flowing and who's getting it, where did it come from. I saw that they're looking at indicting the guy from Canada, the Chinese guy that's been spending so much money in Act Blue. People keep saying nothing's happening. They don't realize how much is happening. And all the deflection that we've been hearing from people, this is it. This is our big bowl of wax right here. And whether he does it by executive order or by Andrew Jackson means it has to happen. We cannot go into the November election the way it is with 30-day counting and everything else.
We'll be very interested to know what they knew and when they knew it in New Jersey, because this is very troubling that this happened years ago, and she's just conveniently saying it now after we sent that letter out.
Okay.
So we'll see who knew what when.
Yeah, this is such a huge problem, and nobody wants to talk about it. So here's the media. The Democrat governor of New Jersey unveils this information earlier this week, and the media went out of their way to say, well, there's absolutely no evidence, to now, well, it's a little bit of evidence. It's not really a big deal. Take a look.
6,600 non-U.S. citizens were mistakenly added to New Jersey's voter roll. She says about 400 of them ended up casting ballots in a recent election. The governor says the error stemmed from a software glitch at the Department of Motor Vehicles. President Trump's speech last week claiming that voting by non-citizens is rampant, even though evidence shows it is actually quite rare.
What evidence? That's their best catchphrase. Oh, there's no evidence. He said it without evidence. Because you won't give anybody the evidence. You're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that nobody sees the evidence. But I have a stinking suspicion that he may know more than he's letting these people know.
Did you catch that, Hermine? Even though evidence shows it's quite rare. She's reporting that 7,000 people were just registered to vote illegally. I've got about 30 seconds. Do you plan to make an example of these 400 people who voted illegally, arrest them, charge them, and deport them if necessary?
Yeah, I mean, we are going after all of these people in all states. This is absolutely critical, and we're not calling it a glitch or error or a mistake. These are people who self-identified that they were not citizens and they voted. And so we're also doing education around that issue as well.
Okay, because that's a deterrent. If you arrest these people and charge them, it's a federal crime. If you arrest these people, that is a deterrent to other illegal immigrants or people with green cards not to vote in our elections.
Voter rolls for an audit. Do you plan to take this fight to the Supreme Court?
Well, we do. It's actually closer to 30 states. 20 states have given us their voter rolls voluntarily, and we've found hundreds of thousands of people on those voter rolls who shouldn't have been there. Now, since the governor made this announcement, we've opened up an investigation. We asked her to disclose to us the names of the 6,600 individuals who were wrongfully put on the voter rolls, and then the 400 who voted knowing that they weren't entitled to. And today, she hasn't responded to us yet, but she did tell the New York Times and others that she wasn't going to give us that information because, quote unquote, we would weaponize it, and she doesn't trust us with it.
Since when did prosecution become a weapon? Yeah, we want to weaponize it. If they broke the law, why is it that the Democrat Party, as it is right now, doesn't want any enforcement or prosecution of people who break laws? Yeah, they broke the law. They weren't supposed to register. They definitely weren't supposed to vote, but we're not going to give you their names because you might weaponize it. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Aren't we supposed to be enforcing laws? I don't think the Democrats feel that way. They want everybody to be able to stay here. They want everything to be done a certain way so that the people who break the laws never actually face any accountability, even if you already know who they are. It's absolutely insane. The guy I was talking about earlier was Neville Singh. I want you to hear this real quick.
House panel now investigating the money trail of 3 far-left nonprofits. The issue here is whether a Marxist millionaire based in Shanghai gave them tens of millions of dollars. Lucas Tomlinson on that today out of D.C. What'd you find out, Lucas?
Good morning, Bill. The powerful House and Ways and Means Committee wants to know how 3 of these left-wing nonprofits obtained more than $39 million from alleged Marxist tech tycoon Neville Singham. One Republican China hawk calls Singham a traitor and wants the Justice Department, who's launched an investigation, to lock him up.
All of his money comes from China, ties to the Chinese Communist Party, our biggest adversary in America, the Chinese Communist Party. And this guy, who is an American, but he lives in China, all of the billions of dollars that he's made come from Chinese Communist Party tech companies that are using him to funnel money to fuel left-wing violence in America.
So if he knows this, you have to realize Scott Bessent knows it because they're tracking the money that's coming from overseas into Act Blue and every place else, which obviously means President Trump knows it, which also means that President Trump more than likely has discussed it with President Xi. So why is it still happening? I think we're about to find out. I think this is going to come to a head. Remember, I read to you earlier, President Trump said he was asked for certain favors. Well, you don't do a favor like that unless you're getting something in return. Interesting. All right, let's continue.
Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith has issued subpoenas to 3 nonprofits called the People's Forum, Breakthrough News, and Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, all left-wing organizations who Smith says failed to turn over documents voluntarily. Lawmakers are investigating whether shell companies were used to obscure the origin of the money and where existing tax-exempt laws properly guard against foreign influence. One expert tells Fox part of the problem is with this opaque world of some nonprofits.
The nonprofit system was really set up to help Americans help other Americans and not have to pay taxes to do that. So I think that the fact that you now have foreign entities that have taken such a significant interest in our nonprofit system should raise a red flag.
Now, all the organizations accused deny any wrongdoing and argue this infringes on their First Amendment rights. Recall Whittaker Chambers' warnings about communism in his best-selling autobiography, Witness, written in 1952, Bill.
Oh, noted.
All right, this is getting to be very interesting if you're watching it, connecting the dots at this point. There's got to be some people with some severe, sphincter tightening.
Data. Well, who can't be trusted with data, Governor Cheryl? It seems like it's actually New Jersey, because these people said they weren't entitled to vote, and then you put them on the voter rolls in your state, blaming the vendor, calling it a glitch, et cetera. It is the job of the election officials, not some data vendor, to determine citizenship when they put people on the voter rolls. That's federal law. And it also sounds like, Liz, the state allowed these people to stay on the voter rolls for more than a year after they knew that they weren't legally entitled.
Ooh, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt when they're saying there's no evidence. If they can prove you allowed these people to stay on the voter rolls, even though you knew they were illegal and didn't have the right to vote, you left them there. If you notice what Mickey Sherrill said, she's like, it happened before I got here. So you knew it. You went through your entire election. You got elected, and now you're telling everybody, I didn't know anything about it. It was Phil Murphy. It was the other guys that just left it sitting there. Then you got to ask, okay, Phil Murphy, why did you leave this stuff sitting here all these years? Because they had to. They knew it's more than 35,000. You know it's more than 35,000. I bet you it's probably at least double that in terms of all the fake names and dead people they got on the rolls. That's why they don't want to give it to Harmeet.
That is a violation of federal law, too, federal criminal law. So we're looking at this very carefully.
And you may take it to the Supreme Court. So Homeland Security found more than 250,000 illegal aliens on just 4 state voter rolls.
Look at estimated non-citizens voted by state. They found nearly 14,500 in Pennsylvania, 16,000 in Nevada, 190,000 in California, 35,000 in New Jersey, and that's just what they have found from the outside looking in. They don't have access to the actual rolls. What could those numbers skyrocket to once we begin looking at them?
You know about this. California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Nevada. We did a deep dive. 25 states do automatic voter registration at the...
Our latest Fox poll, is pretty overwhelming. Registering to vote, 83% all, even 72% Democrats. And there you see...
See, this is who wants voter ID. And as you can look at it, it's overwhelming. 83%. 83. That's way over the threshold of partisan. That means both parties want voter ID. Democrats, even 72%. Even. Can you imagine that there's, 20 or 30% of Democrats who don't want any ID checked? That's insane. Look at the Republicans and independents. The only reason it's not higher than 83 overall is because the Democrats are scumbags. That's what I'm saying. Rebuke them. We don't have anything to discuss. You don't even want to follow our laws.
Voting at 77%. Ben, this is kind of rich territory as we get closer to the midterms.
It is rich territory, and I don't know why Republicans aren't going around the country and talking about it more. This is classic, Republican politics. Go back to Newt Gingrich. You find those 80-20 issues and you lean into them as hard as you possibly can. This is stuff that the American people just believe is rational, reasonable. They don't believe the left's argument that it is in any way racist to demand, an ID the same way that you would if someone was, buying a bottle of something at a liquor store. This is absurd that the Republican Party has wasted this opportunity, I think, to go around the country and to make this case to the voters as aggressively as they ought to have been over the past couple of months. I hope that they correct that leaning into this November election, because we know all the historical trends go against them. This is the kind of thing that can change that, and I think that they're frankly just leaving it on the table and fighting amongst themselves as they typically do.
Robert.
Now, that was the first time I've heard a Republican pundit say the actual truth. We're not fighting Democrats here. We're fighting Republicans. We're fighting people who supposedly call themselves MAGA. We're internally fighting. This should be screamed from the rooftops. President Trump keeps talking about it, J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, most of us. Why is there some sort of divide with the Republicans talking about it? It should be the number one issue. Somebody brings up the 2026 election, we need to have voter ID. Every single, John Thune, I don't know what you're doing, John Thune. I don't know who you're beholden to. When you keep saying you don't have the votes, you can't get the votes, you're basically waving a white flag. You're telling everybody you're inept. You're telling everybody you may be on the take. How can you look at a data point where 83% of the people say do it, where 95% of your party says do it, can't get the votes? What do you mean? Name names, start shaming these people. If it's Lisa Murkowski, put her face out there. Tell everybody who the scumbags are that are holding things up. If it's only 4 or 5 people, we should know who they are. We should put them on blast. We should understand why they are doing what they're doing. And the reason that you're not doing it is you're covering for them. At this point, point them out. Bring them up on a microphone and let them tell the American people why they are completely against voter ID, even though 95 or 96% of people want it. Even Democrats want it. Well, Democrats who are, I guess they would consider establishment.
Well, you know, Al, 2 things can be true at the same time. First of all, in Louisiana, you got to show your driver's license to vote. I have to ask Michael Wallman or Fred Wertheimer, does this really have that much of an effect? And voter fraud in the United States is an infinitesimal problem. I don't even, to the extent, I guess you could say it exists. Anything?
I guess you can say it exists a little bit. Yeah, it's infinitesimal. But he's smart enough, even though he's trying to defend it. He's smart enough. No, we can't win this. If I believe what I'm saying, that it is, infinitesimal, which maybe he doesn't believe, but at the same time, as a strategist, he knows this is a fight we can't win. He can look at a chart, as cranky and cantankerous as he is, he can look at that same chart that Brett Baer just posted and damn, 85%, 83, whatever it was, 80% of independent. This is bad. This is very, very bad. He's smart enough to know that. He's doing his deflection, but at the same time, letting his people and his party know, I don't think we're going to be able to run away from this, folks.
It could exist. It exists on such a minuscule scale, right, and it's been proven time and time and time again. But I don't know if we're not better off saying, okay, we'll take that alternative ID. Bring your gas bill or your light bill or something. Because
Nope. We don't want your gas bill. We don't want your light bill. Nope. Been there, seen what people have done with that kind of stuff. Too much forgery, too much, word processor. Your ID. That's what we want. I'm not going to be satisfied with somebody bringing in a light bill.
For whatever reason, this shit polls at 75%. I don't I don't think people are aware of it. I think people assume that voter fraud happened. Again, I don't even want to say it. If you want to say infinitesimal, I don't know if I could think of a word that would be even narrower than that. I would say that. And I don't like when we say, well, look, it's a very minor problem, but you got to admit it barely exists.
Yeah, just a little bit, okay? But that little bit is pissing people off, Jim. By the way, I have to figure out how I can do my videos in my bed. That to me, that's the ultimate of laziness. Just turn on the camera while you're in bed. But anyway, I digress. Jim knows it's like having this thing in his foot, in his shoe. He got a rock in his shoe. It's not really a big deal, except that people think it's a big deal. And the fact that people think it's a big deal means we got to do something about it.
And it's just, it doesn't make any sense. Having said that, we are not going to win the war against some kind of ID.
There it is. John Thune, you got one of the preeminent Democrat strategists over the last decades pretty much telling the Democrats we're not going to win this. So if you're basically looking inside at a coaching meeting, and the coach is looking at this wide receiver and we can't stop him. I don't know what we do. You don't want that to be known. You don't want people to hear that you're like, I don't know how we're going to stop this dude. Well, he just told the world, we can't stop this. We cannot win this fight. We are going to have to acquiesce one way or the other. John Thune, are you watching? Are you listening to what he's telling Democrats, that this is a no-win solution here? They can't get away from it? Because when you hear that as an opposing player, as an opposing team, an opposing coach, you start salivating. I found your Achilles heel. That's it. That is your number one thing to go to for the election coming up. None of the other stuff. I don't give a crap about gas prices. I don't care about egg prices. I don't care about affordability. You've got their Achilles heel. And every single one of you at this point has to know, when you look at those numbers, that's the winning thing on two different fronts. One, ideologically, and number two, it chases a whole bunch of their votes away because the dead people aren't going to show up. I don't know how they've been showing up, but the dead people won't show up. So, John Thune, if you're going to call the offices, which I encourage you to do, tell them, did you hear what James Carville said? They are even saying, even the Democrats, the earlier one I showed you, they say we can't beat them here. So if you know that you've got a key to victory, you got to run that play. You got to keep running that play. Hey, yeah, give me the double Q Waddle coming through the inside check. Run that play over and over. Why are today's Republicans, sort of rhinos, maybe MAGA, FAGA, out there bitching about stuff when everybody right now should be screaming from the bleachers, run the play. Give it to Fred. Do it. Because now we know for sure that even they realize they can't defend it.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fix anything, but maybe you just go along with it and move to the next
Well,
thing.
James, let me disagree. We have voter ID in most states. Most states have voter ID.
Right.
What they're trying to do with this so-called SAVE Act is require what they say is proof of citizenship, which is either a birth certificate, which, I don't know, 25, people have a hard, I went a couple of years ago, I was going to take a trip overseas, and about 10 days ahead of time, I couldn't find, I spent 10 days trying to get my birth certificate.
Why did you spend 10 days trying to get your birth certificate? Let me answer that for you. You spent 10 days trying to get your birth certificate because it was important for you and your wife or whoever to go on that vacation. It meant a whole lot to you. I am going to go through these hurdles so I can go on this vacation. And it took you 10 days. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the calendar right now and I'm thinking, you got 4 months, never mind years. If you didn't have your birth certificate or passport or a driver's license, or now you still got 4 months, 120 days. It took you 10 for some reason, but we're going to give you 120 days. Go for it. Get your driver's license, get your passports, if you don't already have it. No more excuses. It's the same thing every 2 and 4 years. She couldn't get to go get her driver's license. Oh, it's too far for her to get her birth certificate. Oh, it's too expensive for a passport. You wanted to go on vacation, didn't you? And because you wanted to go on vacation, you did what you had to do to get that birth certificate. Shouldn't voting in our elections, our electoral process, be even more important than going on vacation? You just basically underscored your idiocy. Man, I take voting seriously. I'm pretty sure you take voting seriously. Just like you're going on a vacation. Robin say, your passport expired. I got to get my passport renewed so we can go on vacation. I'm doing it, but then again, I know I'll have it when it's time to go vote. It's not an impediment that anybody who's even going on a vacation said, you know, it's going to take me 10 days to get it. Well, you got 120. Do something about it. And John Thune, you need to understand this is a must-have. And if Trump is going to go around you, then fine. Then maybe it is you need to go as well. There's no excuses here. None whatsoever why we keep having the same discussion every 2 and 4 years about how hard it is to get an ID. Most of us have had ID since we were 16 years old. Most of us. Every single of these people who are baristas at Starbucks, they got IDs. If you're getting benefits, you got an ID. I want to know who doesn't have the ID. It can't be the poor people because they get free shit. Excuse my language. So they're going to have to prove who they are. They had to sign up for this stuff. So I want to know who this segment of society is that you supposedly can't get voter ID. Oh, it's going to be too hard on married women. My wife's married. My daughter's married. My sister's. What do you mean? That argument only works on stupid people. Matter of fact, you couldn't get married without an ID. So none of this stuff makes any sense, and that's our winning formula.
Or secondly, a passport, which most people don't have. And thirdly, you know, if you talk about your birth certificate and, you know, you didn't get to keep your maiden name, my wife let me keep mine. If you didn't get to keep your maiden name, you know, you're in trouble. So I think you're absolutely right on voter ID, but we basically have it.
Again, if we have it, just say, okay, pass the law. I mean, I think I don't want to pass.
There it is. He just said we basically have it. Even James Carville, like, well, if we have it, pass the damn law. And then a guy comes back and goes, well, I don't want to do that. Why? I love when people tie themselves in knots. You say one thing, and then literally seconds later, you can't even substantiate what you just said. And if James Carville is telling us this is where the pain point is, why aren't we sticking our fingers in this wound and just making it hurt? What are we talking about here?
I never had a problem with it. I'm just saying, of all the things, people, if every poll shows 75 or better, say we should have some kind of an ID to vote. Some say, I don't know what it is, but shit, just quit fighting and go along with it and move to the next thing.
Well, there it is. I couldn't have explained it any better. From the bed of James Carville, he's like, can we just move on from this? We're not going to win this. Wave the white flag. Trump's going to get it. If we lose, we lose. Start over. That's it. But I'm not worried what the Democrats are doing. I'm not worried what the socialists are doing. My concern, and your concern at this point, is what the people on the right are doing. You realize right now, we wouldn't even be having this discussion except if it wasn't the traitors in our own camp that are causing the issue. Right now, Mike Johnson and Thune should just be able to pass this thing. President Trump would have it, and there would be no 2026 competition. It would be over. Why is it people on our side are causing this competition when it doesn't need to be? We could eradicate them. We could completely never have to worry about a Democrat Party, I think, ever again. So I don't care about any polls. They're bullcrap. I don't care if people can do stump speeches. This issue right here solves everything. Everything. So if you're going to call Thune or your local congressperson, yeah, this is a one-issue election. We get voter ID. All this other stuff falls into place. It's that simple. Very simple.